Good morning. Today we are starting our very last lesson for telling time, and that will be 7-11. And next week we'll be starting on some geometry. So this is your last day for learning how to tell time. Hopefully you've had a good experience this week. If not, a little more practice will help you to be better at being able to read both an analog clock and a digital clock. Today we're going to be focusing on the AM times and the PM times. How would you use AM and PM to describe a time? So we're going to, actually what I want to do is I want to go over to the second page, if we could. Let's have a quick little discussion about AM and PM. That will help you to better understand what we're going to be doing today. Starting with noon. This is about the time that you eat lunch. Oh my gosh, it's not coming in very focused today, is it? There we go. Noon is 12 o'clock in the daytime. Midnight is 12 o'clock at night. Now here's the important thing that you really have to get into your head. Times after midnight, that's when you're sleeping and you've been in bed for a while, and before noon, when we typically eat lunch, are written as an AM time. So here we have a picture of some kids outside playing. They say the time is 11 a.m. in the morning. Just before we go to lunch, you might be outside playing with your friends. That would be an AM time. Usually we can write AM two ways, but the way that they're writing it for now is with a small letter A and a small letter M, but you also can write it as a capital and capital without periods. Okay, then we come over to times afternoon, that's 12 o'clock, and before midnight are written as PM. So these are two times that look the same except at different parts of the day. At 11 p.m. in the evening, you are usually, that's hard to see, but this child is sleeping. Hopefully you can see it better than I can see it on mine. And this would be a PM time. So that's really where you have to be thinking as we go through this lesson, the difference between an AM time and a PM time. So I'm going to show you a note that I use to help my face-to-face students. You might want to take a picture of this and make a copy of it so that you can have it. The time from 12 o'clock midnight, okay, this is when you're sleeping, to 12 o'clock noon is an AM time. During this time, here's some of the things that you're doing. At midnight, you're probably going to be sleeping, and as the time goes on, you'll be getting up to go to school. And typically, we eat lunch about noon. Not everyone eats lunch at noon, but it's about noontime. So that would be an AM time. The time from 12 o'clock noon, well, you're going to be in school at that time and probably just having finished lunch, to 12 o'clock midnight when you're going to be asleep again are PM times. During this time, you're finishing your lunch, you're going home from school, and you're going to bed. So those are just a few little things to help you keep the AM time and the PM time straight, because that's what this whole lesson is going to be about, is getting yourself accustomed to the 24-hour clock, which has a 12 o'clock and a 12 o'clock. Well, actually, all of the times show up twice during a 24-hour period. So let's go back now to our front page. On our, let me get the right page here. Our front page this time is I want to talk to you about these two times. And you might want to write these down. Let's look at two 8:30s. And I think I'm going to switch this just because this lesson uses the PM, AM with a period, AM period, and a PM with a period, although it is acceptable to do both capital and small letters. And yes, so at 8:30 a.m., this is after midnight and before lunchtime, you're probably going to be going to school at 8:30. So you're going to draw 8:30 on your clock with your red and blue pencil and identify this particular 8:30 as an AM time. Okay, these are things that happen after midnight. And then we have 8:30, 12 hours later. exactly the same position on the clock, except we're 12 hours later. This 8:30 would be the PM time when most second graders, I would say all second graders, should be either in bed or heading to bed so that you get enough sleep. So there are two 8:30s on the clock in a 24-hour period. We have 8:30 in the morning, which is getting ready to go to school. You should probably be up and moving by that point. With our face-to-face kids, they're probably standing out on the playground just waiting for the bell to ring. So now I'm going to take my little clock here and I'm going to get myself to the 8:30 time. Let's see, that's the 7:30 time. There's the 8:30 time right there. Now, I'm going to start with the 8:30 time in the morning, and you are going to count with me as we count around the hours. So, one time around the clock is 1 hour, 2 hours, 3 hours, 4 hours, 5 hours. Every time I get back to the 6 down below, I've counted an hour from then. 7 hours, 8 hours, 9 hours, 10 hours, 11 hours, and here we are at 12 hours later. We are back to 8:30 again, except this 8:30 is after you have been to school and you are probably getting ready to go to bed. So there are two 8:30s in a 24-hour period, with that 24-hour period being divided into 12 hours each. So I'd like to go now and let's go to the 9 o'clock. Well, let's go to the 12 o'clock. If you've got your little clock with you, you might want to do this with me. So we're going to start this one at 12 o'clock midnight. Now at 12 o'clock midnight, you are probably in bed and you have been asleep for a long time, or at least you should be. So we're going to count around 12 hours and get to 12 o'clock noon. Are you ready? Here we go. Ready? And 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock, you're still in bed, you're still sleeping. 3 o'clock, this is our PM time, or AM time, AM times. 4 o'clock in the morning, man, you still better be asleep, and we are still in the AM times. And we go to 5 o'clock. That's about the time Miss Star gets up in the morning. It is still an AM time. Now it's 6 o'clock in the morning. Oh wow, I'm up and getting ready to come to school. Here's 7 o'clock. You're probably starting to get up in this AM time. 8 o'clock. By 9 o'clock AM, you better be in school or working on school at home. 10 o'clock, still AM. 11 o'clock, still AM. 11:05, 11:10, 11:15, 11:20. Ooh, that hand is getting very close to the 12, which means I'm about to change from an AM time to a PM time. There's 11:25, 11:30, still not PM because I still haven't hit 12 o'clock noon yet. We're going to tick our way around to 11:45. I still have 15 more minutes before it's going to be the 12 o'clock hour and changing. Okay, here we go. We are now at 11:55. It is still not a PM time yet, even though it's getting really close to 12 o'clock noon. And as I tick over 5 more minutes, there it is. When the hour hand and the minute hand are pointing straight up, we refer to that time during that 1 minute as 12 o'clock noon. 12 o'clock noon is midday or halfway through the day, and it is switching from an AM time to a PM time. So now we are 1 o'clock PM, 2 o'clock PM, 3 o'clock PM, 4 o'clock PM. We're just counting around. 5 o'clock PM, probably getting ready maybe to have dinner at 5 o'clock PM. 6 o'clock PM, you're probably maybe, I don't know, playing a game with your brother or sister just before bedtime. And now it's 7 o'clock PM and your parents are thinking, man, I really want these kids to go to bed because I'm tired. Here we go to 8 o'clock PM. Man, it is getting close to your bedtime and you better be thinking about it, but it's still a PM time. 9 o'clock PM, 10 o'clock PM, 11 o'clock p.m. Boy, you better have been in bed for a long time. Now we're going to tick around. It's still a p.m. time. It's 11:30 p.m. It's 11:45 p.m. because I haven't hit 12 o'clock yet. Tick, 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 tick. Oh, there we are. Both hands are now pointing to the 12 again. And now we are at midnight, or midway through the night, and our time frame is now changing back to AM, and that continues on over and over. AM times, AM times, AM times. You're still in bed. AM times, AM times, AM times. We don't get to go to the PM time till we zing really fast all the way back to 12 o'clock. Ooh, we're getting close. There's 11. Uh-oh, tick, 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 tick. I am back at 12 o'clock, now noon, which is midday. So you want to be practicing those times on your clock as well. And your job at this point, I hope you copied this down and thought about the difference between the AM time and the PM time. So your job now is to take care of that. And then, my friends, as we talked about before, you can use this as your reference as to help you understand the difference between an AM time and a PM time. So you are going to circle either AM or PM depending on the time of the day that we're talking about. Here we have the time, and I'm wanting you to continue to use your red pencil and your blue pencil to keep track. And as always, I need you to show your counting. So starting up at 0, 5, 10, 15. There's 15 minutes that have passed. 5, 10, 15 minutes that have passed, so the time is 7:15. And because looks like we're eating breakfast, it is an AM time. Your job is to go through number 2. What time would you go to your art class at school? What time are you doing your homework? And what time do you arrive at school in the morning? And you're circling either AM or PM. You're going to continue that as you go to the library, go to science class, eat your lunch, and look at the moon, which, by the way, this particular, we just got finished with a blue moon, not a blue moon, but a full moon. And actually, I'm going to throw in a little science for a second. This full moon that we had at the first part of the first full moon that we've had in 2021, this particular, oh, actually, it's not the first one. It is, this is called a, oh, dearie, it is the pink supermoon. Thank you so very much. Took me a second. We are at the pink supermoon. I don't know if you saw that. It's still, it's not exactly full right now, but it is referred to as the pink supermoon, just because of how close it is to the earth and the fact that it's happening in the spring when all of the pink flowers are starting to bloom. It has nothing to do with the fact that it is pink, because it really isn't. It's like a blue moon. Blue moon is not blue either. All right, so down here, that was just a little science for giggles. I know you didn't really want to know that. Maybe you did. So you're going to use the times listed to complete this story. 10:15 a.m., which would be morning, 3:30 or 3:20 p.m. would be in the afternoon, and 8:30 a.m. would also be in the morning. So Don goes to school at blank. His class went to the library at blank, and after school, Don read a book. You're going to have to fill those in. Then we're sneaking over to the next page. This one is a little tiny bit confusing, but I'll see if I can't help you. Some times are shown on the timeline. Label each dot with the name of something that you do during the school day on that part of the day. So we are looking at right here on this timeline. There's a little dot and a little arrow. This is the time that we are talking about. You have to decide what you might do somewhere between the 8 o'clock a.m. time and the 10 o'clock a.m. time. That's probably while you're in school, so you're going to need to think of something that you do while you're in school between 8 and 10. Your second dot on this timeline is noon. That would be 12 o'clock noon. I'm just going to go ahead and put that as 12 o'clock noon. And 2 o'clock p.m. What's something that you do during the day during that time between 12 o'clock noon and 2 o'clock? Well, here, face-to-face, we're still in school, and distance learners, you should still be in school as well. Then they want you to tell what time would you say those dots are, what times would you say the dots are placed on the timeline. Well, if you think about counting by an hour, so 8 o'clock, blank, 10 o'clock, noon, blank, 2 o'clock, I think you can probably figure out what those two times are, and you need to write those in there. Okay, question number 11. You can read that one and decide about when you do recess at home, and you're going to write the time. Let's see, recess lasted for 1 hour. Write the time that recess was over. Wow, a 1 hour recess? Oh, I'd like to have a 1 hour recess. We don't get that either. All right, so then you're going to remember that this is your exit ticket. You're going to do that last of all, and then you're going to come over and do this before the exit ticket, and you have 6 problems that you need to do. I don't think you should have any trouble with this. And I do want to remind you, as you do this word problem, that you should use cubes and read, draw, and write. And I need you to remember that you are either going to compose or decompose tens as you are working this addition problem with 3 digits top and 2 on the bottom. And with that, I'm going to ask you to pause the video and work your way through these assignments. And when you're finished, you're going to come back and we'll go through them together, and you can check your work with mine. All right, see you in a minute. Are you back? All righty, let's take a look at how you did. Now, we did this one together earlier in the video, and hopefully you took care of that. So let's go ahead and sneak over to the next time. And the time on this clock was 7:15. I needed to see your counting, and it is an AM time. This would be after midnight, which is what makes it an AM time. Going to art class, well, the time shown on the clock is 1:40. And because it is after 12 o'clock noon, it would be a PM time. Okay, coming down to doing your homework is definitely going to still be during the daylight hours, and that would be 4:30, but because it's afternoon and before midnight, it is a PM time. Okay, what time do you arrive at school? Well, if you ride a bus, you might get there at 8:25, and because it is after midnight and before noon, it is an AM time. Continuing on, number 5, going to the library at 2:50. Because this is afternoon and before midnight, it is a PM time. Going to your science class at school, well, we just had a little bit of a science class right here in math time, and it certainly isn't this time. Right now I'm looking at my clock, and it is 6:55, which means it's almost 7 o'clock, and this time that I'm recording this is an AM time when I gave you a little video or a little science lesson. But at school, the science class starts at 10:30, and because it's after midnight and before noon, it is an AM time. And we're going to eat lunch. Usually we eat lunch somewhere around 12 o'clock noon, but in this case, they are eating lunch at 11:45. 11:45 is still before noon, so, and it is after midnight, which still makes it an AM time. It would still be 15 more minutes here before we'd be 12 o'clock noon. So right up until 12 o'clock noon, it is an AM time. Now, if you were outside watching that super pink moon, which is a full moon, well, you might be doing that at 8:15. Because it's after 12 o'clock noon and before midnight, it is a PM time. So Don goes to school at 8:30 a.m. in the morning. He went to the library at 10:15 a.m. And after school, which obviously is going to be after you've had lunch, he's going to read a book at 3:20. And I hope that he reads that book for 20 minutes, which he should be doing every day. Okay, let's move over to the next page. So this is what happens here at face-to-face. At somewhere between 8 a.m. and 10 p.m. in the morning, we go to our walk to read classes. In fact, it starts at 9 o'clock and goes till 10 o'clock. And from noon until about 2 p.m., we here at school are in our math classes, and maybe not quite that well. Actually, we are in it that long. So about afternoon until just before 2 o'clock, we are at our math class. And then those times in between would be 8 a.m., 9 a.m., and 10 a.m. So this would be 9. Oops, I forgot to put on the a.m. My badness. And the time between noon, 1 o'clock, and 2 o'clock would be a p.m. time. All right. So this is what time we go to recess at 11:30 a.m. And I hopefully you did your counting. This would be just before it's time to go to lunch. And if that recess lasted for 1 hour, I would want to tick the clock around 1 hour, tick my hour hand around 60 minutes, and that would put us at 12:30 p.m. Because it's afternoon, it would be p.m. All right, so then let's zip on over to that last page because I don't want to talk about the exit ticket yet. The time on this clock is 4:50 p.m. How can I tell? Because we are going to a soccer game. Usually, if we were thinking about going to a soccer game at 4:50 a.m., it would still be very dark outside, and it wouldn't be reasonable at all to be at a soccer game in the very, very early morning hours. It would still be dark, and it would be hard to play. So then we have Jeff, who gets up for school. He gets up very early, about the same time as Star does. He's getting up at 6:10 a.m. It is after midnight and before noon. You wouldn't get up and go to school at 6 o'clock, 6:10 p.m. because you would probably be eating your dinner by then. So you have to think logically about what you would be doing at that particular time. Okay, if you were drawing a coin that has a value of 25 pennies, it would be a quarter at 25 cents. Describe 72 as the sum of tens. Well, that would be 70 plus 2. 7 tens is 70 plus 2 ones would give us 72. Okay, so school is beginning at the beginning of the year. There was 437 students at Woods Elementary. Over the course of the year, 24 students joined. That means we had more come and nobody left. How many students were at the end of the school year? 7 ones plus 4 ones is, look at that, 11 ones, and I had to compose a 10. 3 tens and 2 tens is 5 tens, plus 1 more 10 is 6 tens, and 4 tens, or 4 hundreds plus 0 hundreds is 400. Hopefully you came up with 461 students. What time is it when it is quarter past? Well, we've gone around the clock a quarter of the way. That would be a 15-minute period, giving you the time. Ooh, look at that. My hour hand and my minute hand are both exactly on the same time, or pointing to the same number. I'm going to just show you what that would look like on your clock. I'm going to tick, 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 tick around that 15 minutes to get myself at quarter past. Both the hour hand and the minute hand are pointing to the 3, giving us a time of 3:15. And I'm going to say that this 3:15 time is an AM time. And if it is an AM time, you probably are doing this. You wouldn't probably. I'm sure that you are sleeping at 3:15 a.m. because it's just after midnight, and you should be asleep by that point. All right, so you're going to now do your exit ticket and send that to your teacher, and I am going to say to you, have a great day of learning.